And we are good to go. All right, so some introductions kind of to get us started here. Again, my name is Tom Behrman. I'm kind of becoming more of the district rep for APS Online, kind of that go-to person in the event that somebody needs some concerns or questions. But just so everybody knows, we do have individuals that are representatives at all of the three levels. We have Ellie Diamond, who is the representative for K-5 elementary. Nancy Abram is the middle school representative, and that would be grades 6 through 8. And of course, we have Craig Barrett, who has been the high school online rep for quite a while. And he is also still on board working with our 912 students. So these are kind of some names that you will see as an online parent for people that can come to help you. But I just want to make sure you saw some names with some grade levels. So if you are a parent of an elementary student, I'm sure you've probably spoken to Ellie. I'm sure you probably are familiar with that name. The same with middle school with Nancy Abram, and of course high school with Craig Barrett. So just some introductions there. Our goal tonight is to provide all of our APS parents with some necessary information as you move forward in order to make the best possible decision for your child's online education. We are aware that a lot of you are probably going to be sticking with the online component when it comes to online arts education for second semester. So, there's just been a lot of information out there that we feel parents need to be aware of as you continue to finalize this semester and move into the next semester. So, to move forward, we have to kind of move back, and we just want everybody to know that we are all here as a team. You have a support staff of representatives for the elementary, middle, and high school, as well as myself. You have your mentors, who I'm sure you've spoken to on numerous occasions, that's helping you understand the progress of your child. And we're all in this together, so just want to make sure that we keep an open line of communication amongst these three groups so that we can ensure that the student at the end is successful through this bizarre school year. So to kind of give you a history of what APS Online has always been, it's been in existence for about 10 years. Predominantly at the high school level, Craig Barrett has been the one that has kind of been the pilot of APS Online, along with Matt Poley, who was the principal here before me, is now moved over to central office, is doing an outstanding job over there helping with human resources. So those two gentlemen kind of took off APS Online, and the current health crisis has caused kind of a bizarre situation. So numbers in Michigan and across the country soared this August, and a lot of people don't really understand what exactly that looks like. So here's kind of a visual of exactly how much online schooling increased for these vendors that we dealt with. At the end of last school year, there was about 2,500 students working through our vendors. In the fall of 2020, within a matter of months, 77,000 students were attempting to be created and enrolled in courses as the school year started. As you can imagine, it looked something like this when the school year started. You had 77,000 students all filtering into one vendor trying to get out with courses on the other side. So a lot of you, such as myself, I am the parent of an APS Online kindergartner. So I felt this too. I was also trying to figure out, navigate, and learn a lot about the elementary component of APS Online, because as I mentioned before, K-8 is brand new to APS Online. We've never had a K-8 program really for APS Online in the past. It's always been dominantly at the high school level. So again, this is kind of what it looked like. So some of you parents out there that had some frustrations with how the school year started and the delays, please understand that everybody was kind of maneuvering through the same thing as we were. With the rising numbers, there were delays. A lot of us felt that delay, including myself with my daughter. There was a bottleneck. We had to go through the Genesee ISD in the Flint area to get these online vendors going. And of course, that's what it looked like. 77,000 kids We actually had many vendors ran out of seats because Michigan law requires that a certified Michigan teacher is on the other end of that online course. So when you look at an online course, you have a teacher who's in charge of the class, as well as a mentor here at APS. So that teacher that is actually in charge of your course has to be a licensed Michigan teacher. And so they had a shortage of teachers. Once they had courses enrolled, then they had a shortage of teachers, which created even farther of a backlog, which led some of our courses to being filled before we could actually fill it with students. So that's kind of what led to some of our headaches back in August. So what have we learned as we begin to plan for second semester? So we kind of have a better understanding of the capabilities of our vendors. So we've reached out, we've expanded the network of vendors we're using, and I'll talk about that here in a second. We already have kind of a protocol in place for mentors, which was a third problem we had to fix, was enroll in courses, find Michigan teachers at those vendors. Then here in APS, we had to assign mentors. So now that we've kind of gone over that hurdle, we have kind of a better understanding as we move forward. So we have a little bit more of an understanding of what we need to do. So we're hoping that as we move into the next portion of the school year, we have things a little bit better in place. So where are we now as a school district when it comes to APS Online? At the K-5 level, the biggest change to what we're doing has occurred at the K-5 level. We have 3 vendors that are now supplying courses for our students. We have Lincoln Learning, which many of you are experiencing now. We have Accelerate Education, and we have Odysseyware Education. Not all are for K-5. A couple of these programs are for grades 3 through 5, which I can have Ellie speak to. I believe Ellie's on this call, so I can have Ellie speak to that here in a second. We are working on second semester information. So for those of you that are K-5 parents, your child's mentor will be reaching out to you in the coming weeks with a survey that they will fill out with you that will help navigate through planning for second semester, because the smooth beginning of second semester will rely a lot on the information we get promptly from our parents. And so that's kind of coming soon. So Ellie, if you're on the phone, if on this call, could you unmute real quick and talk a little bit about these vendors?
Sure. Can you hear me, Tom?
Yes.
Perfect. So hello, thank you for joining us tonight to talk about APS Online. I can tell you a little bit about the vendors. Lincoln Learning is a company that has been around for about 20 years, and the majority of our online students are participating in Lincoln Learning in ELA, math, science, and social studies. Those are our 4 core classes. And Lincoln Learning has 90 lessons per semester, which is beautiful because in a typical year we have 90 days per semester. So that works out to 1 lesson per class per day. Now we did start late, and some of you have been doubling up on lessons. Odysseyware is the second company, and Odysseyware is available for 3 through 5. Lincoln Learning is K-5. And we have probably a dozen kids that are utilizing Odyssey programs. And their lessons are a little bit different. They don't necessarily have 90 of them. Some of the lessons are short, some of them are longer, but it works out to about an hour a day or 45 minutes a day per class for the kids to make it through the material by the end of the semester. And the one that we have just recently added is called Accelerate Education, and that is brand new to us. Those courses have just opened just this week for our students, and we've added electives for our kids. So most families will have 2 different programs that they're working in. And again, Tom alluded to this, but the reason why was the Lincoln Learning and Odyssey filled up before we could add electives for our kids. Now the electives, think of them as being optional courses to add. We have them available for your students, but it is our focus that your kids will work on completing math and English language arts. We hope that they can get through half of their science and social studies. And if they have time and if they have the ability to work in art or PE, that's frosting on the cake.
Mhm. Awesome. All right, thank you. So as Ellie kind of alluded to, really, if you're a K-5 student, if you think about a K-5 classroom, most K-5 classrooms work in the world of ELA and math, and science and social studies, you know, factors into it as well. But really the focus as we move forward is really that math and that ELA. Electives are, like Ellie mentioned, kind of icing on the cake. The science and the social studies are there as well. But if you were to step foot in a lot of our K-5 classrooms, even right now in pandemic learning, they're really, the focus is a lot on the math and the ELA as well. So as you're a parent matriculating kind of through your child's online learning, kind of keep that in mind when it comes to the math and the ELA, with a heavy emphasis on that, with the science and the social studies coming in as a secondary component, with your electives being kind of icing on the cake. Parents, just kind of remember, you know, it's very different, as I'm sure you've learned, from where it was in the spring, where your students were on Google Meet or Google Classroom and they're right there with a classroom teacher from APS. You know, this is not necessarily like that right at this point. So I have a non-reader in my home. She's a kindergartner. So obviously it becomes a challenge with significant support needing to come from that adult in the home to help them navigate through these courses. So obviously it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge for our K-3 parents to maneuver through all of these courses versus potentially a 4-5 student who is an emerging reader or a reader. So kind of keep that in mind, but you know, you're looking at about 5 lessons each day, 20 to 45 minutes. You know, we are trying to supplement a full days of instruction through what they would be getting if they were in a traditional classroom as we move forward. So just some helpful information for parents as you continue to move through, and really what the rest of the school year will look like. So ultimately we need you. You know, parents are going to be a huge part in this. We are, as a district, a huge part in this, but you're not alone. You're not on an island alone. I know sometimes as a parent you feel that way. I know I'm experiencing that in my home with my wife and my daughter, who's a kindergartner. You know, so we get the struggles, we get the island, we know what it feels like. Pandemic learning, even at the high school level, is not easy, and we're all kind of struggling. But just remember, you know, parents, we need your help just as much as you need our help. So just, you know, keep that in mind, that we're all in this together, and you have a support system in your mentor, in your APS online reps, in myself, plus the online teacher as well. So middle school, Nancy Abram is on the call, so she'll join us here in a second to talk a little bit about middle school. But middle school is also a different animal than elementary and high school. The one thing I want to remind our parents of middle school students, credits are not in the equation of what we're talking about. A lot of our parents live in the world of high school, where you have credits that you have to earn towards graduation. There are no credits at the middle school level. So keep that in mind as well as you move through your students' online education. But your full-time students will be assigned their six classes, so they're 4 core plus their 2 electives. And then they should, again, just be working a regular day as if they were in school, which is, I know it's easier said than done for many of us, but that should be the goal. Is emulating a 6-hour school day as much as possible to get through those courses. We have right now some elective courses provided through Edison. Our objective for second semester is moving all of our students at the middle school level to Edison, which makes it very helpful for parents because it's all on one page, one login, one provider, one system. Everything is right there, a one-stop shop. It's not something we can do right now at the elementary level, but it is something we can do certainly at the middle school level. Nancy, I don't know if you want to unmute and share a little bit about the middle school level at this time.
Yeah, thanks again for everybody joining in. As Mr. Berryman said, the switch to Edison is partly due to some of the feedback that we're getting from students and parents. A lot of people would like it all to be in one place, all to be in one general format. So we think that this will be successful. We've been listening to feedback about pacing confusion with how some of the Edison things are set up. So we're looking at making some changes in semester 2 that will hopefully streamline some of those issues by setting up the course dates a little bit differently. So that's one thing we heard loud and clear, that it's still confusing. So I think we're gonna definitely try to address some of your concerns in that way. So hopefully everything will roll out pretty smoothly. There's definitely some things that we've learned, but all in all, I think most of our kids are doing well, except for still having, what I'm hearing from the mentors is, we're hearing from kids, oh, we worked 1 or 2 hours today. It's like, well, and that's why you're so far behind. So if there was kind of one push from parents, again, that full school day, it's hard when you're just sitting in front of a computer all day. I've been sitting in front of a computer all day this year too, and it's definitely a change for me. But encourage breaks. Kids need breaks, but they really do need to be putting in the full school day time somewhere, however they want to divide it up. So, but anyway, that's all I have for now. If you have any questions at the end, we'll be taking questions then.
Cool. All right, thank you. High school is probably the one that has the least amount of change from August until now. High school, again, has been where APS Online has lived for the last decade. We've had students, last year we had 2 students graduate, 3 students that I know of, seniors, graduate that were 100% online, and we have more and more and more now coming through this program that are fully 100% online because of the flexibility that it provides. But it is very challenging at the high school level, more so than the other 2 levels, to continue to move through. And this is where we start to deal with credits. And this is where we've had students flourish and we've had students struggle because of the difficulty that APS Online, the online courses in general, have at the high school level. Right now, we are beginning the stages of planning semester schedules. So if you're a high school parent, the easiest thing you can do for us right now and the easiest thing you can do for your child is begin having those conversations about second semester. We are, as a high school, looking to continue the second semester in the hybrid model for face-to-face instruction. So if that's something you're interested in transitioning your student to the face-to-face instruction at the high school level, or obviously to continue with APS Online, start having those conversations now, because the quicker you're able to communicate that to your counselors and to us, the quicker we can get schedules built. And then when second semester begins, literally Mr. Barrett is pushing start on these courses, and there's no delay when they get started. So again, high school is right now the one that's moving a little bit in some normality because of its established history compared to K-8. I know Mr. Barrett is on this call, so if Mr. Barrett wants to unmute and discuss anything about high school at this time, I'll allow he can do that. So again,
okay, there we go.
Hey, there's Craig.
So, as Mr. Behrman alluded to, it's totally different at the high school level. It is all about the credits, and you're still scheduled for 6 classes, but it's more important to, let's say, work on 4 classes and earn credit on those than work on 6 and not finish any of them and not get any credit. So it is all about the credits at the high school level. There's certain things that you have to do just like any other regular class. Online is a different animal, and it takes some getting used to. You work at your own pace. A lot of kids like to work on 1 class at a time. Some like to work on all 6 at a time. I don't recommend that, but I don't recommend working on just 1 either in case you get stuck. But 2 or 3 at a time. You're only dealing with 2 or 3 teachers at a time. That seems to be you know, the most successful way to do it over the past 10 years that I've been doing this. So the biggest thing you can do is get with your, if you won't plan on going online, get with your counselor and make sure that you have a schedule set up and it's good to go, you know, well before January, the second semester starts. We can avoid these bottlenecks and other things by getting at the front of the line. So the sooner you get your schedule set up, the sooner we get the stuff ready to roll, and that's going to be the benefit for everybody.
Absolutely. All right, excellent. Thank you, Mr. Barrett. So and Mr. Barrett reminded me of one thing. We've always utilized what we call here at the high school the hopscotch method when it comes to courses. So traditionally, we've given a student who's in an online class full-time, they've been given 1 or 2 courses to begin. And if they make adequate progress in those 2 courses, more and more opened up. The biggest thing that we want, especially our high school parents, to understand is that we as a district purchase per course. We have to have a license per course. And the biggest thing that we try to avoid are giving a student right off the bat 6 full classes that we have to pay for and they don't do the other classes. It's a monetary loss for the district. Obviously that's pre-COVID. Now with COVID, we're doing more of that and students are understanding that importance more and more and more. But just understand that, you know, traditionally at the high school level with the difficulty, and we've done a little bit at the junior high too, you know, we'll open just a few courses to start. And then as kids, usually it's the math and the English first. And then as students move through, we add the other 2 core, and you try to get through with that. At the high school level, when it comes to credits, Alpena Public Schools requires 22 credits to graduate. The state of Michigan requires 18. So as a district, we've added 4 elective courses on top of the Michigan Merit 18. So the one flexibility APS does have right now is waiving some of those elective credits as long as students can get those correct 18 done. So just kind of a couple tidbits that parents need to be aware of that are at the high school level. So again, our goal as APS Online is to make sure that we get everything sorted out and everything organized so that when second semester begins in January, we can push go, and the frustrations that many of us experienced in August do not reemerge in January. So that's kind of our goal. Like I said, it was a blog jam in August. We've kind of got time on our hands now, and that's why we're having this conversation tonight with our current APS Online parents to kind of get that ball rolling a little bit. So a little bit of the uncertainty we have right now is the end of the semester information. So as of right now, all courses K-12 are slated to end around the 15th of January. And this provides a week of time for instructors and teachers to get grading and getting information submitted in. Our elementary folks their grading will be given a satisfactory or unsatisfactory. And that's just because we have an online formula that we want to make sure is fair for some of our students grading wise. So that's how we're going to roll with K-5. With junior and high school, there's a grade issued by the instructor that is going to factor into what their actual grade is. And I'm going to have Craig unmute again if Craig wouldn't mind discussing a little bit about how the grading works, because this is where he is our expert.
Well, basically, it's just like a regular teacher. They're a certified teacher, whatever. They recommend a grade and give it to us. And basically, you can work on classes. The 15th is the last school day that you have to work on these classes, but you should be able to submit work through the 17th. So you have that extra weekend to come up with, you know, a last-minute ditch to get all your stuff in. And then the class usually shuts off at that point, and then the teacher has, you know, 3 or 4 days to make sure that they're getting all the assignments graded and getting all the credit and for the assignments that the students submit, and they submit a grade to us, and then we take that grade and basically we transfer it over to Synergy or whatever grading system we have. So normally in the past, A satisfactory, unsatisfactory grade would be something like a passing cumulative grade. So if you get a 60% cumulative passing grade for the class, then you would get a satisfactory grade. The cumulative grade is, let's say you do 60% of the class only, but you have a 100% average grade on the stuff that you handed in, that equates to a 60% cumulative grade, which would be a satisfactory. Now, if you had an 80% average and you did 75% of the class, then that would work out to a 60% cumulative grade as well. You take the two and times them together, and basically you would have a satisfactory. So the further you go along in the class, the better chance of passing, obviously. If you have 100% average, but you only did 10% of the grade, then we can't count that as satisfactory. So obviously you have to do a good portion of the class to get a satisfactory grade to make sure that you're learning the content and ready to progress to the next grade level.
And it's especially important to note for our K-5 parents, you know, make sure your children are also doing the activities and not just skipping ahead to the assessment, because a lot of that grade could factor into the assessment with the activities as well. So make sure that they're moving through everything and not just skipping right to an assessment. We want to make sure we remind you of that. So Craig, do you want to talk a little bit about their progress and how they should be progressing?
Well, again, normally you have 6 classes, so you can count that as 600%. You should be finished by January 15th, whatever, 600%, which would equate to 100% in 6 classes. That's what you're scheduled for. That's what you're kind of expected to complete. Again, with the late start on some of these elementary classes and things like that, the electives and whatever are not quite as important as the core classes, but your mentor should be able to keep you on pace. The online providers try to do the best they can, but they don't know what our school days are, when our breaks are, winter breaks, Thanksgiving breaks, and some of the other stuff, non-school days. They don't know how many classes that the student is scheduled for. So if you're only working on 3 classes, you know, they're going to say that you might be on pace, but you have 3 other classes to do. So you have to listen to the mentor. We have a spreadsheet that tells you exactly where you should be at, depending on how many classes you have scheduled to complete for the semester, per day, where you should be at that point in time. And they usually do that weekly check on Wednesdays, and tell you exactly if you're behind or ahead or you're doing okay and things like that. So the pacing, you have to listen to the mentor. Again, the platforms don't know what our school days are or scheduled classes. So please take their word for it. And unfortunately, it's hard. Everybody wants a magic number. There is no magic number. Each class has a different number of assignments. They're worth different points on those assignments. You know, different vendors have different ways of doing it. So it's hard to just say, you need to do 3 assignments and then you'll be good, because every class is different. There's too many variables. And so you have to listen to your mentors. They will tell you and keep you on pace of where you should be to finish all of your classes by January 15th.
Absolutely. So the biggest piece of advice I'd give to parents right now is just really focus on pacing, focus on getting these courses through. If you're at the K-5 level, priority is your math and your English, with secondary being, or the next level of priority being science and social studies. Really, the K-5 principals, we met earlier this week, and really what they would like to see is a full completion of the math and English, and a good progress in science and social studies, because that's really what's happening in the classrooms right now as well with COVID learning. Is they're really focusing on the math and the English, and pushing the science and social studies along as best as they can. 6 through 12, again, just work towards completion. Work towards as much completion as you can get. Pacing, you know, making sure that you're emulating as much of a school day as you can. When it comes to finishing courses, like what Mr. Barrett said, I'd really focus on relying with your mentor. about what happens if you don't finish courses. It's really significant K-5 that you do finish math and English. Not as significant if you don't finish science and social studies. Really significant in that area. 6-12, really significant that you're pushing through the completion of your core. With high school, making sure you get these classes done for credits. But again, we just want to make sure that we're pushing through and getting completion. But definitely communicate with your mentors about what options you have with finishing courses. Craig, is there anything you want to add about course completion?
Well, like I said, it's all about the credits at the high school level. So if you're totally freaked out about not having 6 classes open but you're way behind pace, again, one of the reasons we don't turn all of these classes on is we can submit a W for withdrawal if you haven't started the course. And if you start the course, you're going to get a grade whether you finish it or not. So if you don't finish it and you end up with a few Fs on your transcript, that's going to look a lot worse than W. So that's one of the biggest reasons why we don't turn on all 6 classes at once. Now, if you're a veteran online person, then you might be able to do it that way, but it's totally different. You're not expected to work on 6 classes all at once, especially at the high school level when credits and GPAs are involved. So, you know, you have to think out of the box a little bit when you get there. It's not exactly like if you're going here for 6 hours a day. The biggest thing that you can do to finish your classes, though, is to set up a schedule. I don't recommend following a regular school day like 7:30 to 2:30 because sitting at a computer all that time. I mean, I do it every day, but I'm used to it. I recommend setting up a schedule, break up days, have breaks in between. You can work less time during the week and work time on the weekend. You can do it any time, day or night, but set a schedule so that you're getting the same amount of hours that you would if you were actually coming to school, because that's how the classes are set up to take that amount of time to finish. So you have to put in that. You can't do 1 or 2 hours a day and expect to finish. It doesn't work that way. Yep. So set yourself up a schedule.
Right. So a couple questions in the chat came up that are good questions. Speaking about, you know, a GPA situation, and that's a real situation when it comes to your online courses. There are some conversations that we really could have with individual situations when it comes to some of these courses, but that's really the emphasis is pushing through these classes. You know, a W is like what Craig mentioned. A W is going to be a lot different than an F. And the biggest piece of advice I want to give to high school parents is the college application process is also evolving through COVID because of all of these situations. Traditionally, in recent years, when colleges get a transcript, they rebuild that transcript anyways to look at it with a lens that is specific to that college. So, you know, keep mindful if you're speaking about GPA and college applications and stuff like that. You know, every kid kind of in the country is in that same boat. So my biggest advice to our high school parents is, you know, push these kids, you know, and yeah, there's a huge overwhelm component of it. There's a huge social emotional component to it. I think we all know that the biggest detriment right now we are all facing is social emotional well-being. You know, there's nights where I myself, you know, as an administrator of a building is struggling. I can't imagine parents. So we all, you know, we understand that component, which is really why we really want our students to focus on the completion of courses they can get that done that are those emphasis for graduation. You know, focus on those, you know, scheduling time, scheduling reps, getting these done. You know, it is overwhelming, but again, we all can only control what we can control. And a lot of our students are getting wrapped up in a world of things they can't control. So I'll be more than happy to have some side conversations or phone calls with some of our high school parents that want to talk a little bit more in depth. And we'll go from there. So and we can chat a little privately there as well. So if there's any, one question that came up, Craig, I want you to emphasize this. There is, when it comes to high school, there is some flexibility for the completion of a course.
There is. I mean, you don't have to do all of it. If you wanted to go I mean, it all depends on the situation. We've done credit, no credit at some point in certain classes because of various reasons or whatever, a late start or problem with the provider or the teacher on the provider or something like that. So there's flexibility that we've gone to in the past in certain situations.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So yeah, there is some flexibility. So that hard, steady end date, you know, there's some situations where some teaching situations have been upheaved and there's books and there's stuff and there are extenuating circumstances we can work through. So also keep that in mind. There is some flexibility specifically at the high school level. So right now we do have some time set aside for some Q&A. If anybody has a question, they can either drop it into the chat or you can unmute and ask at this time. So if there's any questions, we will be more than happy to field them. All right. So Sarah asked a little bit about the late start with high school. I would talk to the mentor first, and then we can move on from there. So if you need more of a time frame when it comes to flexibility, assuming that's what you mean, talk to the mentor first, and they can follow up with either the counselor or Craig. So I would start with the mentor first, and then we can go from there. Mentor is always a good place to start. They may not have the answers, but they'll act more of like a silo to get the information to the right person. And another person you can always ask at the high school level is your student's counselor. At the junior high level, you have Mrs. Saya, who you could speak to as well, or either Ellie, Nancy, or Craig. Any other questions that anybody has? I will be sharing this video with everybody later, as well as the slideshow that was shared. So you'll get kind of all this information later. And if there's any questions that come up after, I know we threw a lot of information at you tonight. If there's any questions that come up later, feel free to contact the representative from that grade level. We'll be more than happy to address those questions. We also do have a frequently asked questions document we are working on for each level that we'll share out when it's completed as well. Like I said, our goal is to get information to parents as much as you can. And then if there's any other information you aren't getting that you feel you need, let us know. So are there any other questions?
Well, on a follow-up to that, we do have a lot more flexibility for first semester. So, you know, school ends when school ends on the second semester. That's just the way it is. But school continues through first and second semester. So we do have a lot more flexibility to work with, you know, incompletes and some other things. So I wouldn't get totally worried about that yet. We do have a lot of options.
Absolutely. There are options. And there's options really at all three levels as well. But high school is really where the emphasis comes in with flexibility, basically mainly because of credits. The other levels there is flexibility, but high school we tend to give a little bit more. More is needed because of the credits. Okay, so if there's not any questions, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up for this evening. I want to thank everybody who attended. I want to thank Mr. Barrett for joining us. I want to thank Ms. Abram for joining us and Ms. Diamond for joining us. And again, thanks to parents. And if there's any questions that you have later, don't hesitate to reach out to one of us. And again, we are here to support you, and we are part of this team, and we want to work well with everybody. So again, thanks everybody, and enjoy the rest of your night.